Hello and welcome to my channel, Medicine with Dr. Moran. Have the unvaccinated been discriminated against during the COVID-19 pandemic? Today I'm going to report on a recently published peer-reviewed study in Nature, which addresses the attitudes that people have towards the unvaccinated during our current global pandemic. There's a link to the study in the description below as always. The study authors are from Denmark and Hungary, and they talk about vaccine mandates, the passports, the massive information campaigns, but they point out that despite this, some people in countries around the world chose not to get vaccinated. They point out that some politicians have attempted to justify strict policies against the unvaccinated by using very moralistic rhetoric. Now, survey research shows that divisions based on vaccination status have emerged amongst the general public, and those who refuse vaccines report that they feel quite discriminated and pressured. They state that vaccination status has been consistently aligned with political opinions, and in the case of the United States, partisanship. Now, this study I'm going to talk about included 64,000 people. And they actually quantified discriminatory attitudes between vaccinated and unvaccinated citizens in 21 countries. This figure shows the average level of exclusionary attitudes in family relationships. These are exclusionary attitudes towards the unvaccinated from vaccinated respondents and towards the vaccinated for unvaccinated respondents. There were 54,054 vaccinated respondents in their survey, and on average, they were 13% more unhappy when presented with an unvaccinated versus a fully vaccinated person. Now, this varied across countries and ranged up to a high of 36% in Malaysia, while results in Romania and Hungary were actually not significant. If you look at the unvaccinated respondents, of which there were 10,386 people, they exhibited negligible exclusionary attitude towards vaccinated individuals with the average of -2 percentage points. Due to the small number of unvaccinated people sampled in their survey, there are actually quite wide confidence intervals for a number of the countries. Unvaccinated individuals in Malaysia, Italy, and Russia actually exhibited significant exclusionary reactions towards other unvaccinated individuals, as you can see in the figure. One interesting thing about the study is that they found that discriminatory attitudes were higher in countries with cooperative norms. And what this means is that the more likely a country's population followed the rules or the norms of society, the more discrimination was evident towards the unvaccinated. It's extremely important to note that the study demonstrated the vaccinated in the United States support restrictions of the rights and freedoms of the unvaccinated. These desired restrictions were not little things like not just being allowed to go to the mall. And as you can see from this slide, the vaccinated Americans feel greater apathy towards unvaccinated Americans by 16%. They're also 28% less likely to respect the unvaccinated's freedom of movement, 10% less likely to respect freedom of residence, 8% less likely to support their application for U.S. citizenship, 7% less likely to respect their freedom of speech, and 7% less likely to support their application for welfare benefits. The study concludes, and I quote, "We have documented that individuals vaccinated against COVID-19 express negative attitudes against the unvaccinated in the form of things like apathy, stereotypes, support for exclusion of family relationships, and support for removal of political rights. In total, these four forms of discriminatory attitudes are consistent with the observation of prejudice according to standard definitions in social psychology." Now, many of you may have come across these attitudes in your interactions with people, whether you're vaccinated or not. At the beginning of the pandemic, we also saw discrimination against those who unfortunately got this virus through no fault of their own and came down with COVID-19. You have to remember that we all get viruses and colds, and we know this. And to discriminate or look down on someone who just got sick is not appropriate. We know very early on in the pandemic that once this virus got into animal populations, it was going to be a virus that was simply not going to be able to be eradicated. Thus, whether you're vaccinated or not, you're going to get infected with this virus intermittently throughout your life, just as we do with other respiratory viruses. Now, only a minority of people in most countries have not been infected with the virus as we go into 2023. Some people have had several symptomatic infections over the past 3 years. In my profession, it's important not to discriminate against people who have any kind of illness. It's also important not to discriminate against their choices of investigations or medical treatments. Our job as physicians is to discuss investigations, treatment strategies with our patients, and ideally we want to treat the patient with the right intervention at the right time using the right dose and frequency of whatever that intervention is. Now, the risks and the benefits of each intervention must be quantified. There will be times where patients will choose against an intervention even when the benefits outweigh the risks. And you have to remember that ultimately that's the patient's choice. Thank you for joining me today on Medicine with Dr. Moran. Get healthy and stay healthy.